If you're thinking about selling your Bozeman home right now because you're afraid of a crash, don't. And I know how that sounds coming from a real estate agent, the guy who only gets paid when you sell, but here's the fact that stops that conversation cold. The part of this market everyone assumes gets hit first in a downturn, the luxury end, it's actually up this year. More high-end homes have sold than a year ago, and at higher prices. This is not what a crash looks like. I'm Chase Heiland, a real estate broker here in Bozeman, and I pull the real closed sales straight from the MLS. The numbers Zillow and Redfin legally can't show you in Montana because we're a non-disclosure state. So everything I'm about to show you is the real market, not an estimate. So before you call an agent and list, give me the next few minutes. I'll show you the actual 2026 numbers and a way to pull cash out of your home without selling at all, and a handful of times when selling really isn't the smart move. Let's get into it. Let me be clear about something first. There are completely legitimate reasons to sell your Bozeman home right now, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Maybe you inherited a property you don't want to manage from out of state. A divorce might mean you need to divide things cleanly. A job relocation can make being a long-distance landlord more trouble than it's worth. Or maybe you stretch too far on the purchase and you need out from under it. These are all real, and selling is often the right call. What I want to talk about are the other reasons, the ones that sound like strategy but are really just anxiety reacting to a headline. The market's going to crash. I keep reading about a recession and I don't want to get caught. I heard prices are dropping everywhere. What if it turns into 2008? That's what this video is really about. Let's start with what the news actually gets right. The Bozeman market has slowed down from the 2021 pace. At the peak, homes sold in about 6 days, and right now we have more homes for sale than we've seen since 2011. That slowdown is real, but look at where it actually shows up. It's in how long things take and how much is for sale, not in prices falling off a cliff. A slower market and a crashing market are two completely different things, and the news keeps blurring them together. Let me give you the real 2026 numbers from mid-2026. The closed sales straight from the MLS. The median single-family home inside Bozeman city limits is around $790,000, still up a little year over year. Countywide, it's about $745,000, and here's the part that kills the crash story. Homes are selling fast again. The typical single-family home in the county sold in 14 days in May, and inside the city, it was about the same, right around 2 weeks. A market moving homes in 2 weeks is not a market falling apart. It took a breath in the slow stretch, and now it's moving again. And it's not just the mid-market. Even luxury, the part everyone assumes gets hit first in a downturn, held its ground this year. Through the first 5 months of 2026, high-end prices were up and more luxury homes sold than a year ago. When the top of the market is getting stronger, that is not what a crash looks like. And for the past 3 years now, prices have basically been flat. After a run where they roughly doubled from 2019 to 2022, flat is exactly what a healthy market looks like when it catches its breath. And it's really what we need right now. The folks calling this a crash are comparing it to 2008. But 2008 was a lending crisis. Subprime loans, over-leveraged banks, buyers who never should have qualified in the first place. That's not happening here. Bozeman buyers have equity, lending standards are tight, and homeowner equity nationally is at all-time highs. The conditions that caused 2008 just don't exist in the market. What does exist is a news environment that runs on fear. And fear is what pushes homeowners into decisions they'll regret for the next decade, probably longer. If you want the real Bozeman numbers like this every month instead of the national fear cycle, please subscribe. I pull them straight from the MLS, so you're working from what actually closed, not just a guess from Zillow. You can't time this market, and I mean this completely. Nobody times the Bozeman market with any consistency, and definitely not with the precision it would take to justify dumping a solid asset. Think about the homeowners who read the 2022 headlines, decided a crash was coming, and sold to get ahead of it. They thought they were being smart. 4 years later, they've watched prices hold instead of fall. They've been paying rent north of $2,000 a month in this valley, building zero equity, waiting on a correction that never showed up in the way it did in their heads. The crash never came, and now they have to buy back into a market where prices held the whole time. Here's the reality I see every day. The demand under Bozeman is structural. Geography caps supply. You can't build into the bridgers, and the protected federal land to the south boxes it in on that side too. People keep moving here. Montana State anchors the local economy, and Big Sky pulls steady money in from the resort world. The forces that drove prices from 2019 to 2022 didn't disappear. They normalize. A normal market sitting on strong fundamentals isn't a signal to run. It's the opposite, a reason to hold what you've got and let it keep working for you. Let's talk about what you're actually holding if you've owned in the valley for 5 years or more. If you bought in 2019, the median home inside the city was around $400,000 to $450,000. Today, it's about $790,000. That's real equity. For a lot of you, that's close to double what you put in. I get the instinct to protect it. The second prices stop climbing, the fear set in. But here's the thing. The moment you sell, you lock in that position and you immediately start spending it down. Closing costs, moving costs, capital gains above the exclusion limits, the cost of living somewhere in between. Rent, which in Bozeman still runs over $2,000 a month, really closer to $3,000. And then the hardest part, you have to find somewhere to put that money that does as well or better than the home you just left. In this valley, with supply this tight and demand this steady, that's very hard to clear. There's an option most people never seriously consider, and it's turned a lot of homeowners into landlords this year, sometimes without ever planning on it. Keep the house and rent it out. Here's why this works so well in Bozeman right now. If you locked in a low interest rate back in 2021 or 2022, or you've owned your place since before 2019, your monthly payment is probably a lot lower than what that same home rents for today. Rents in this valley are still high enough that the rent check covers your mortgage and then some. That turns the home you're about to sell into an asset that pays you every month and keeps building equity at the same time. I've had this exact conversation with a number of clients this year, and more than a few times, the honest answer was don't sell. And I want to be clear about something because it really matters. My job is to be your advisor, not just to sell your house. If you need to sell, I'll sell it for you and I'll do it well. But I'd rather you understand every option you have first, including the times when the smartest move is to hold. Now, this isn't for everyone, and I won't pretend it is. Some people have no interest in being a landlord, and that's completely fair. That's why I call it the reluctant landlord, because plenty of folks back into it and find out it's really not for them. Tenants call, things break, the work is real. So here's when it actually makes sense. You want a trusted property manager handling the day-to-day. So you're not the one getting the midnight call about a frozen pipe. And after that manager takes their fee, the numbers still have to leave you with an asset that puts money in your pocket, not one that loses money every month. If both of those are true, you have a real cash flowing rental instead of a sale you can never undo. If they're not, then selling might genuinely be the better path. And we talked through that honestly too. Renting out is one way to hold. Some people take it a step further, and this is the one I teased at the start. The way to get cash out of your home without selling it at all. Here's what I walk clients through when they want their equity without giving up the asset. A home equity line of credit lets you pull money out of your property without a taxable event. The equity you take out isn't income, so there's no capital gains on it. You can use that as a down payment on a second property. Let the rent from your current home help cover the cost. And now you own two pieces of this valley instead of one. Now, rates on home equity products are higher than they were 3 years ago. That's very real. The 30-year sat around 6.5% at the end of May, down from almost 6.9% a year ago. So borrowing costs have eased a little, though they're nowhere near what they were in 2021. Here's why it can still work though. A lot of Bozeman homeowners locked in a 3% or 4% rate on their primary home, renting that home out at $2,500 to $3,500 a month, which this market supports, throws off cash flow that helps carry a second purchase. This isn't a no-pain strategy. You need reserves, and you have to be able to carry both homes through a vacancy or surprise repairs. I won't pretend it's easy, but that's how the people building real long-term wealth in this valley are actually doing it. Instead of selling, they're layering one property on top of another. Here's one more thing worth saying because everything else rests on top of it. The most important money decision in a market like this isn't really about when you sell. It comes down to how you bought in the first place. If you bought within a sane payment to income range, keeping your housing costs at or under a third of your actual take-home pay, you have room to hold. You can hide out a slow season, a stretch of vacancy, a market that softens a little more. You're not living on the edge of somewhere that only works if everything goes right. Now, if you stretch to buy and you're uncomfortable right now, that's a very different conversation. And selling to right size might be the smart move. But that's a financial decision driven by your own numbers, not a reaction to the headlines. Know which one you're actually in before you act. Now, since we're halfway through 2026, let's talk about timing within the year, because in Bozeman, the season you sell matters a lot. April, May, and June, they're our first big wave of the selling season. That's when the most buyers are out, and a lot of the first wave are families with kids trying to buy or sell before the school year starts. That's the window we just came through. And you can see it in the numbers, homes moving in 2 weeks and buyers active across the valley. Then when we hit July and into mid-August, things normally cool off. Not because the market's broken, but everybody's on vacation. People are at the lake, traveling, squeezing every drop out of summer. Showings slow down. So if you list in that midsummer stretch and it sits a little longer, please don't panic. That's the calendar. It's not a crash. Late August, September, and into October brings the second wave. That's buyers and sellers who want to get moved and settled before the snow flies. It's a real window, and it can be a strong one, but it's shorter and it has a hard backstop because once winter sets in around here, activity drops off until spring. So if you're thinking about selling in the back half of this year, here's what that means for you. If you list now, you have that fall wave to aim for, but you want to be on the market and priced right heading into it. You don't want to still be getting ready in October. Wait past that fall window and you're likely looking at a slower winter market. Fewer buyers and longer days on the market, which usually takes more patience and sharper pricing to get it done. None of that is bad. You just want to go in knowing which wave you're selling into. Now, do you remember I promised you the handful of times when selling really is the smart move? Here they are, because this is the honest other side of the whole video. There's a real difference between selling because you're scared of the market and selling because something specific and real points to it. One of those is just fear talking. The others are actual strategy. So let me walk you through them. Selling makes sense if your home itself has a real liability. Maybe it's a layout or a location that was a tough sell even in the hottest market. Those problems don't improve by waiting. So if that's your situation, moving on can be the smart financial call. The second case is the luxury seller who's been waiting for the right time. A lot of people assume the high end is the weakest part of the market. The data says otherwise. Through the first 6 months of this year, luxury single family sales were up about 19% over last year. Prices were up around 6%, and Big Sky nearly doubled its high-end sales. So if you have a high-end home and a real reason to move, the demand is there to sell well. The third is when the move-up math actually works. And this is the one I get most excited about because this is where a sale actually moves you forward. If you've owned for 5 to 7 years or more, you're probably sitting on serious equity. And that equity does nothing for you stuck in the walls of a house that no longer fits your life. Maybe you've outgrown it, your family changed, your work changed, or what you want out of this valley changed. That equity is the tool that carries you to the next chapter, and putting it to work on purpose is how the people I work with keep building wealth instead of just sitting on it. And I want to be clear about what I mean by wealth because it's really two things and they matter equally. One side is financial, it's your equity and the long-term return this valley keeps producing. The other is your lifestyle, the space you actually need, and the quality of life that's the whole reason people came to Bozeman in the first place. A move done right grows both at the same time. Here's the part people miss though. Waiting carries a cost too. Every year you sit still because the timing never feels perfect is a year your equity stays stuck and your home fits your life a little less. So if you have real equity, a clear picture of where you're headed, and you've run the numbers on that next place, selling is one of the smartest moves you can make. You're putting your equity to work with a real destination in mind. And that's exactly the kind of plan I map out with clients before they ever list. Selling out of fear of a crash, the data just doesn't support it. That's just a reaction. And reactions get expensive in real estate. If you do sell, do it right. If you weighed all of this and selling is still the right call, let's sell it well. Sellers in this market are getting right around 98% of their asking price when they price it correctly. But that only happens when the price is right from day one. Overpriced homes don't get rescued by negotiation. They just sit. And sitting costs you in carrying costs, in lost leverage, and in that stale listing feeling buyers start to pick up on. So price it for the market that's actually here today, not the one you wish was here. Get professional pictures, stage it, or at the very least, declutter and depersonalize, and hire an agent whose plan goes past just throwing it on the MLS and hoping it works out. Homes that are positioned right still move fast in this market. It's the ones that aren't that sit and stall. Here's where I want to leave you. If life genuinely calls for selling, a relocation, a life change, the math on your specific situation, then let's build a plan around it and make the most out of your position. But if the only thing pushing you is fear that a crash is coming, pull your equity numbers. Look at the actual Bozeman data, not the national headlines. Run the rental math and check whether a home equity line gets you the cash you want without giving up the asset at all. The Bozeman market isn't 2008. The demand hasn't broken, the geography that capped supply hasn't changed, and the fundamentals that built your equity are still firmly in place. You're probably sitting on a stronger position than the news is telling you. Don't make a permanent decision based on temporary fear cycles. This is exactly the kind of decision I walk people through every single day. And it's all part of my Montana Move method, a step-by-step process for buying, selling, and building wealth in this valley. If you want a head start, I put the whole framework for this decision into a free guide. So grab it in that description, and you'll also find a link there to book a call, and we'll talk about your specific situation. So let's start a conversation. What's making you think about selling right now? Drop it in the comments because I read every single one.